Hey everyone, it's Drayton from Scale Trains, and I'm welcoming you back to the Rivet Counter Spotlight Series. Today we're going to take a quick look at our second run of Rivet Counter HO Scale EMD SD38-2s. Stay tuned. So before we get into the road names and paint schemes in this run, here's a little bit of background on the EMD SD38-2. The locomotive came at a time in the railroad industry where things were rapidly changing at EMD. They were looking for ways to enhance the customer experience and cut down on maintenance, and the biggest part of that was to replace their original wiring schematics. And so EMD came out with the Dash 2 electronic system. It was basically a card system, so if there was a part of the locomotive that wasn't working properly on the electrical side, you could swap out these cards. They looked like boxes, and just grab one off the shelf, put it in there, and you're ready to go. Cut down immensely, and so EMD really had high expectations for their Dash 2 line. The SD40-2, the 3,000 horsepower turbocharged version of this locomotive, sold exceptionally well. As a matter of fact, it was one of the best-selling locomotives of all time. So EMD, building on its SD38 and SD40 platform, they extended the frames of these locomotives. You had more adhesion and all that, the Dash 2 electronic system. So they had high hopes for the SD38-2. Unfortunately, though, only 90 of these locomotives were ever sold. But the railroads that rostered them absolutely loved them. So here's where we get down into the road names and paint schemes. You Iron Range guys are going to be thrilled because we've got Bessemer and Lake Erie, Duluth, Mesabi, and Iron Range. We've got Chicago and Northwestern, Chicago and Illinois Midland. We also have the former Reserve Mining, now GATX locomotives that were leased in the late 80s, early 90s. We have Burlington Northern in Cascade Green and in Whiteface. And then, we get a lot of requests for the McLeod River Railroad number 39. And it was a short line in Northern California that only had one of these locomotives. And the good news is we actually worked with a former McLeod employee who provided us paint chips from the prototype. So you're going to get the most accurate SD38-2 possible for that road name and all the others too. So much research went into these road names and paint schemes, especially for Burlington Northern and DM and IR. It's really cool because there's 3 different paint scheme variations for the DM and IR, and one such, road number 212, has a crooked arrow on the side. I don't know if the paint shop guys were hung over from a fun night at the bar, but they did not apply that arrow correctly. It makes for a very interesting model. And of course, you've got all those railroad road numbers and error-specific details. Same with Burlington Northern. No Rivet Counter model would be complete without correct lighting. Burlington Northern was known for their beacons. The road numbers that had beacons have them. Same thing with the DM and IR. They had either Saturn or Tomar brand beacons on top of the locomotives. And each road number has that specific beacon, and the flash pattern and all that is correct for the prototype. One thing that's kind of cool to me is on the cylinders, on the brake cylinders on the DM and IR units, there's actually a service date for when those cylinders were serviced by the maintenance base, which is just incredible. You can take a magnifying glass and see that detail for yourself. Of course, you've got that rust-colored wheels underneath. The HTC trucks on the DM and IR units. Behind me we have road number 209, and the detail on these models are just incredible. All of the different air hoses that you see, the additional air hoses, the anti-climber on the front of the locomotive, that was a DM and IR specific detail. There's also the all-weather windows so that they could switch and the engineer could lean out the window and get a better view of what he was doing. There's so many neat railroad road number and era-specific details in this run, and some railroads preferred to have dynamic brakes, others did not, like the Chicago and Illinois Midland, offering a variety of road numbers there for the 70s guys and early 80s guys. No dynamic brakes there. So This run really caters to the 70s, 80s, and early 90s modelers. And, whether you're, an iron ore hauling railroad, which is cool because we actually, for the DM and IR, have sets that you can order of the ore jennies, the Fox Valley model 70-ton ore jennies that go with these models. If you're an Iron Range guy, you've got the Iron Range roads. But if you're a Class 1 guy and you need some motive power on your layout in a yard somewhere, Burlington Northern, that's the ideal service that these locomotives were in. And many of these SD38s are still in service today on Class 1 railroads. So it's a great locomotive, a must-have if you're a 70s, 80s, and 90s guy. And of course, in future runs, we will have road names for Ditch Light era modelers. We get a lot of requests for Canadian National and the modern EJ&E. That's one that always gets requested. So be patient; those are coming. But right now it's so important to place your pre-order now. We really tightened up our order quantities from the factory. The first run it did all right, but some of those more unique road names, because the SD38-2 is such a niche locomotive, they took a while to move off the shelf. So we decided to be strategic with this run, and we're going to really tighten those pre-order quantities. So if you don't place your pre-order, you might be out of luck. So it's super important to click that link in the video description and place your pre-order today at scaletrains.com and select retailers. We really encourage you to do that now. So hope you enjoyed this video and a quick overview of the Rivet Counter HO Scale EMD SD38-2. I can't wait to see these locomotives on your layout. So when you finally get yours this winter, make sure you send us some pictures. We'd love to share them on our Facebook page. With that said, make sure you hit that like button. It helps us out a lot with YouTube. And make sure you subscribe to the channel, ring that bell to get notifications. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for tuning in.